And now for news from Gandhinagar. In fact, the US Ambassador Nancy Powell has arrived there from an overnight stay in Ahmedabad to meet the Chief Minister Narendra Modi. That's live shots of the meeting of the two officials over there. This is the first time a senior US official has met Narendra Modi since the 2002 Gujarat riots. The US claims the meeting is in line with what it calls a concentrated outreach towards senior political and business leaders in India. However, a State Department spokesperson added that there was no change in Washington's stand on refusing a visa to the Gujarat Chief Minister for allegedly suppressing religious freedoms in his state. Javed Ansari, our National Affairs editor, is with us on the phone line. Javed, the US says this is all part of its outreach, of course, happening just a couple of months before the elections.
Yes, indeed it is. They've done their assessment and they realize that Mr. Modi has a very good chance of heading the next government, and therefore they believe it is in their interest to build their linkages with him, and that is precisely what they're doing. This has been in the works for a long time. A lot of behind-the-scenes work has gone into it. A lot of overseas Indians, friends of BJP, have been working at it, and above all, the US now realizes that Mr. Modi will, in all probability, be heading the next government, and therefore it is in its interest to link up with him.
The other side to this meeting, of course, is a clarification that came yesterday from the State Department. A spokesperson was asked whether this also could mean a visa to Narendra Modi. The State Department spokesperson saying there's been no change in that policy. Now, Narendra Modi may not take too kindly to that.
Look, if Mr. Narendra Modi becomes Prime Minister of India, do you think, or does anybody think that the US can continue to ignore him and deny him a visa? Will the US not engage with the head of the world's largest democracy? So therefore, this is all a question of just form and procedure. What Nancy Powell has said is she's just stating the obvious. It's not within her powers to immediately grant a visa. There's a process, and once that process is initiated, the US will, in all indication, have to just willy-nilly grant Mr. Modi a visa.
Because, of course, there are congressional laws in place that prevent them from doing that. But at the same time, if Narendra Modi, as you said, becomes the Prime Minister, he automatically should be getting a visa to attend the UN General Assembly summit in September. But that aside, Javed, the other side to this is what the US has been missing so far. There's been a lot of talk of foreign interest in Gujarat, particularly in terms of investment. That has been happening privately, but the official thrust from the US side not happening over the past 10-12 years.
Yes, but once Mr. Modi, you can afford to ignore a particular state, but you can't ignore the entire country, and the US has huge business interests. The US is eyeing the Indian market like it's done never before, and it cannot not engage with whoever is India's next Prime Minister, and therefore that is precisely what they're doing. Foreign relations and such issues are guided entirely by self-interest, and they believe it is in their self-interest to engage with a person who is likely to head the next government.
The other question that many are asking about this is, I'm sorry, we're getting a bit of an interruption over there. But Javed, the other question that the people are asking about this meeting is, what does Nancy Powell, or what possibly could Nancy Powell be saying to Narendra Modi after all these years, keeping him in isolation?
This is meant to be an icebreaker. This is meant to be an icebreaker. There's been lots of behind-the-scene contacts, but this is now the first formal contacts, and diplomats are trained to deal with such issues. You can say a lot of things without actually saying too much. There's a lot of symbolism attached to this meeting. This is the first time that the US is officially reaching out to Mr. Narendra Modi. So I'm sure they can talk of business interests. They can talk of a lot of mutual interests, and how between India and the US, and how the US appreciates all the good work, that's the development that is taking place in Gujarat. I'm just trying to second guess what these two personalities will be talking about, but in her position, perhaps this is one of the things that I would have spoken about.
All right, Javed, many thanks for getting us those perspectives there. We also have Uday Maholkar, who's a senior editor with the India Today group, joining us on the phone line. Uday, how do you read this morning's meeting in Gandhinagar?
You see, US had started engaging with Modi about 2 years ago.
when the US Consul General in Mumbai shared the dais with Modi at a function in Banaskantha. So after Modi started changing his image, after he got elected in 2007, US has been trying to build bridges with him. But there is a dichotomy back in US, because there the religious groups are still after Modi. So, the pressure by the groups which have launched this campaign against Modi in US, these are basically Christian groups, So how to tackle that? That is the dilemma of the US administration. Secondly, the NRI community in US also comprises a very large number of Gujarati NRIs who are very powerful. They are powerful businessmen. They are powerful economic entities. And these people also are, rooting for Modi. So I believe that they have an upper hand right now. But one thing I would like to point out, US still trying to do a balancing act. Today, for example, the US Ambassador will meet the leader of opposition, Shakti Singh Goyal also. Then they are going to meet SEWA also. SEWA is a NGO which has, been against Modi all these years on issues which it thinks are right. So US, while engaging with Modi, is also trying to do a balancing act so far. Yeah.
Uday, many thanks for getting us those perspectives there on that meeting. As Uday Maharkar of the India Today group was suggesting over there, huge business interests at stake, particularly among the very entrepreneurial Gujarati community, not just in Gujarat, but certainly in the United States as well. And I want to go back to Javed Ansari on that question. Javed, the other side is, while in the early 2000s, there was pressure from an anti-Modi lobby within the United States, in the past few years, we've seen the NRI lobby in the United States batting for Modi, or at least a section of it. We seem to have lost our connection with Javed Ansari, but we'll try and get that back up, try and get more perspectives on this meeting. But on your screens, scenes from that meeting between Nancy Powell, the US Ambassador, and Narendra Modi, the Chief Minister of Gujarat. By all appearances, at least, a warm meeting, smiles all around, despite the history, the fraught history of this relationship over the past decade or so. Remember, Narendra Modi was denied a US visa. His earlier visa was rescinded after the US said he had allegedly suppressed religious freedoms, specifically referring to the riots in Gujarat in 2002. Kamal Farooqi is with us on the phone line for more on this. Mr. Farooqi, how do you read this meeting in Gandhinagar?
That's a double standard of America, in fact. They know it. They feel that they are the champions of the human rights across the country. But while coming to their own interest, in fact, they go to any extent. I do not know what change they have found in Mr. Modi, except that, yes, of course, there is a media hype created and all those lies which he is spreading all over. So maybe because they feel that he has got some remote chance of heading the government, so they are trying to safeguard their interests. They are not interested in anything else except safeguarding their own interests.
But to be fair, that's what any nation would do. India as well.
No, why should? When India will never do like this, in fact, because
you're saying that India has never engaged with leaders that is disagreed with in the past?
No, what I mean was the first thing would be that we will have to watch the interests of the country, number one, and with principles on which we stand. India does not want to interfere in any other country's affair, number one, and number two, we always see that that should be our philosophy, and that is our philosophy, that we will not appreciate anybody who is violating the human rights across the world.
Well, I'll give you one example, Mr. Farooqi, of India doing this, and this is the Taliban in Afghanistan. First we said we're never going to talk to them, and now we're trying to engage with them.
No, we are not engaging with Taliban. We will be engaging with the government over there. So Taliban, in fact, I don't have any remote idea about the whole thing, whether the government would be directly interacting with them, because as long as Taliban continue to behave like this, I don't think India would ever do that. And if they do it, that will be unfortunate, because this will be against the policy of the established policy.
What about
of the
with Mr.
country.
Pervez Musharraf in Pakistan? He was the man who waged a war in 1999, and then he became president, and we talked peace with him.
Yeah, but he became the president. After becoming the president, yes, we have to handle. But before that, we would not be interested in dealing with that.
So that's exactly what the US is doing with Narendra Modi then.
So, but Mr. Modi is still in the election fray. I said, nobody knows whether he would be there at the helm of the affair or not. If he is at the helm of the affair, God forbid, then the US may talk to the country head, but not before that. But anyway, so what is the difference now? Has Mr. Modi got all the clean? His ministerial colleagues have been got clean. The charges are not there. In his own ministry, the people who have been convicted not there. They are on bail. So all those things are there. But still, if the US government if wants to have engage themselves with them, it is there, so it will. But that in fact shows that how double standard they are.
Well, actually, I want to come back to that point you made about Narendra Modi and the law, because as far as the law is concerned, he's gone through 2 courts which have now said that there's nothing that sticks to him as far as the riots are concerned. So the US is fair in engaging with him.
Sir, as far as this clean chit which we are talking about, and a lot of media have been put it like this.
Well, the courts have put it, Mr. Farooqi. I'm not saying the media is doing it. The courts have said.
Sir, this is the first stage. The first stage of the communal rights and the Jaffrey murder, in fact, of 2002, which has come out on 14. It is the first stage of the first trial. That is the magistrate. Now the process is going on. He is not being. He cannot say that he's been totally cleaned out. Even for ATS, there was 2 different opinions. One was the ATS, and one was the amicus of the Supreme Court.
A Supreme Court monitored trial, no less.
Yeah, so that's the reason. Otherwise, this whole case would have been closed. But rather, the government had on the basis of it, the case should have been closed. But the petition of Zakir Jafri is still alive. It is not finished. So you cannot say that he's been cleaned out, and his own people who are associated with him, who are still with them, or who are the people who are associated in his association, and even recently that Asimanand exposure, all those things put together, you cannot say that Mr. Modi is clean.
All right, Mr. Farooqi, we appreciate you sharing your thoughts here with Headlines today. Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.